All right, welcome one and all to our November CDD webinar, coming to you live from Merrimack, New Hampshire in my dining room. My name's Eric. I am the Vice President of Chorus Director Development in the Northeastern District. Happy to have been doing these webinars all year and hope you guys are getting a lot out of them. We post them up on the internet for all to see and partake of. There's our next slide. Hope you can all see that okay and you can all hear me okay.
Yep.
You can always, if you don't feel like speaking up, you can always chat me in the GoToMeeting window. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Okay. So let's get down to some news before we welcome our guest speaker today. If you or some folks in your chorus haven't seen the Outstanding in Front videos that Larry Dodge has put together with the CDD team, they are fantastic. If you go to the YouTube Barbershop Harmony 38 channel, I'm sure you all follow that and subscribe to that. They are in there, and they're currently in the process of getting them all in one place from the Harmony U channel. I think they're getting them all over to the Barbershop Harmony 38 channel. But search for Outstanding in Front. There's a sequence of awesome videos for the beginner and right on up through. So if you've got somebody in your chorus who might make an excellent director or a good assistant director, section leader might think you might want to break him in, flapping his arms in front of the group. These are some good videos to get them going right out in front there. So please take advantage of that. I wanted to lift up and celebrate the guys in Portland, some of whom are tuning in today, who had a wonderful CDWI on the 7th. Hashtag for the win, because it was awesome. It was very awesome. We had, who did we have for teachers? Ray Schwartzkopf, right? And Jim Turnmeyer were there with 3 of our Portland directors as
Some
well.
good dudes there. That's good.
Awesome dudes. It was a great day. As well as
thank you.
Yeah, as well as Scott from Dover, who's our newest chapter in the Northeastern District, the newest official chapter. Scott was
nice.
The director. Yeah, great to have him there. And Paul from the Lowell chapter is their assistant director. Great to have him there too. And I'm excited to see Jay and Chris attending here today in the webinar. Be happy to hear your feedback while we're on it. Why don't you guys tell me about the day and what you enjoyed, what you got out of it. Let's start with Chris. I see you out there.
Hey everybody. I'll kind of repeat just basically what I said to you beforehand, Eric.
Yeah, Chris, if you could come a little closer to your mic for us.
Can you hear me better now?
That's a little better.
Yep.
Excellent. So I'll kind of just repeat what I said before we got on the air here, is that it was just a fantastic weekend. To think that we basically spent 6 to 8 hours worth of work, and in that time we all improved on a number of skills. At least the directors from our chapter, we've now seen results back in our rehearsals where guys are more comfortable singing for them, guys are having more fun singing for them, and there seems to be a much better atmosphere in rehearsal. And the event it's unlike anything else. I mean, my background is my college made degree is conducting. And even in some of the classes I've been to, I've never dealt with any of this type of stuff, this type of training with those classes. With a totally different approach, and I thought it was incredibly powerful and incredibly helpful. Definitely would recommend it for anybody who's never been to one. It could definitely open your eyes to some things that can make this a lot more exciting for you.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. Good perspective there. Jay, anything else to add?
Well, I thought it was a great way to kind of get the mirror turned around. We always work so hard trying to help our guys on the risers that we often don't get that much attention ourselves. And I think the chorus really enjoyed seeing us work and seeing us grow. And as Chris mentioned, they're right on top of it. I mean, as soon as we stray a little bit from those 1 or 2 subjects that we worked on, they kind of go, hey, careful what you're doing there, and then they seem to help out. So I thought it was great.
That's awesome. I know we talked about, I was at the Leadership Forum in Nashville a couple weeks ago, and we talked at great length about the CDWI program, the process, why it is what it is, and why it's designed to give you the morning to really look at your philosophy, what you are here for, what you want to get out of your guys, and what's getting in the way, and what you want to work on that day. Which I find to be a fantastic feature of the program. You guys agree?
Very much so. Actually, what was amazing was realizing what is getting in the way that you didn't even know of.
Yes. For instance, give us an example of that. I think you were the man in the front when someone was talking about your posture, and maybe you fixed something with your posture.
Yes, posture, and also just tended to, my directing box was very high, pretty much from chest up. And as soon as Raymond had me lower that box, lower the directing box, and get my ictus down around the belt line, suddenly the chorus sounded immensely better. It was really amazing. Became obvious that directing up high subconsciously gets them singing with a lot of tension up in their shoulders, and singing and directing down low gets them to support down where it needs to be. It was amazing, and that's one of the things they remind us about. And I'll be directing a song and look around the chorus, and somebody will give me the eye, and lower your table, they'll say. So.
That's great. I remember that moment too, when you lowered your whole gesture, and the whole sound of the room just was so much more resonant and full, and everyone's eyes went, "Oh, wow." None of us there, realized that was why we were doing what we were doing, right? Very cool. Very cool. Well, Chris and Jay, and please pass along to Fred also that we were very glad to have you guys there and have your chorus host it. It was awesome.
Yes, yeah, Fred's been talking about a lot too. I mean, as soon as rehearsals start, he'll remind people about it, and himself. I mean, he's been working very hard to try to adopt some of the things because we all have a list, and we're still working on the one or two things we started with, and I think over time we'll expand.
Great. Very cool. So speaking of CDWI, the next one, if you've already done one, there's a level 2, and the South Shore chapter in Montreal did one this past spring with all 4 of their directors, and they're gung-ho about having another one next spring. So they've signed up for the date. They've booked the hall. They're ready to go for CDWI 2. I do have one spot available. There's only 4 of them. Excuse me. So I could fit another person in. If there's someone out there who's done a CDWI, I could fit someone into Montreal April 2nd. Please just let me know. But we will have more next year also in 2016. Leadership Academy coming up beginning of January. And our director's track teacher will be some guy named Bill.
Some guy.
Some guy named Bill.
Miscellaneous guy.
We'll get to him later.
Yep.
We are very excited to have you here, Bill, with us in Worcester coming up in January. And if you guys haven't registered already, please do. We're going to be learning a song together. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great, great day. And you guys already know this, but I'll just shout it out for you. Maybe tuning in on YouTube. All the past webinars are on anydistrict.org/directors, and they're all sitting there waiting for you to soak up the knowledge. All right, so I mentioned some guy named Bill. Our guest speaker for tonight is Bill Stauffer from the Voices of is it Gotham? Am I saying that right?
Gotham, yes. Thank you so much.
Right.
Yes,
My
Gotham.
apologies.
It's all good.
Terrific, Bill. We are so glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been directing them for a year or so, right?
It's almost exactly a year.
Yeah.
December 4th will be a year. It's been an incredible year. One of the most amazing organizations, period, that I've been a part of, but just wonderful men and a fine organization from an administrative side, standpoint. I've directed a bunch of choruses, sung in quartets. I've been barbershopping since I was 14 from the society officially. I'm now 48, so you can do the math on that. I've been in at the time the Dixie District, the Northeast District for a little bit, Evergreen, and then Mid-Atlantic for, all those times. So it's been an incredible experience for me. Barbershop has been a sort of a background process or a foreground process for me either way. It's been a huge part of my life, and I'm very, very honored to be here talking to you guys today.
We are very glad to have you, sir. So what was your musical background or conducting background before that? Or is it just is barbershop what got you to where you are today?
So I studied music education at Westminster Choir College.
Okay.
I have been primarily a church musician for a number of years, directing choirs and leading worship bands, and other than that, I was a music teacher for a period of time, and also worked in the software industry for a year. So I have a sort of a diverse and sort of strange and fun background.
That's awesome. You probably did the second Westminster alum we've had speaking. Rob Mance was here a month or two ago.
Rob Mance, yeah, Rob is he's a very good dude, and he knows a couple things.
He knows a thing or two.
A thing or two, yeah. We'll give him that. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So tell us. I mean, you've been there a year, but so what is the typical night at Voices of Gotham like for you? What's maybe the week into it? What's planning look like for a typical rehearsal? What's warm-ups look like? Tell us. Get us into the mind of Bill Stauffer.
Sure. Well, that's a very scary place, but I'll try. Gotham is a very dynamic animal. It's a wonderful place. So we start with on a weekday. We start with a physical warm up that gets the guys just acknowledging their physical setup as singers, their bodies. I have a guy named Eric Engelhardt, who's my assistant, one of my assistants, who's a fabulous singer, and actually directs the one of the new chapters in Philadelphia, Rittenhouse Square. He directs the Rittenhouse Sound. Directs them, and Eric generally does our vocal warm-ups. I will do them occasionally, but he does them mostly, and we work everything from working in the warming up the actual instrument to expanding the range to making sure we're connected to the breath to building choral sound. We serve a wide variety of stuff that we work on each week. Sometimes I do warm up, sometimes Eric does. And we do that primarily because we want the guys to have a varied experience and not be like either bored or get into a rote situation where the warm-ups become like an old song that we sing. But we'd rather have them be mentally alive and alert and being challenged. So we mix them up a bit. Gotham is also a very unique environment, and the guys come from all over the city and New Jersey primarily. So we have sort of a connect to guys stepping out of their business world into a very focused environment. So they love it, and yet it's still a little bit of a challenge to get guys directed. We came in 6th at International, which is amazing, and yet we still face a lot of the issues that other chapters face.
So tell me about that. A lot of the issues that other chapters face, such as
we guys come in there they're trying to sort of turn off their workaday world, turn off their issues they face, and step onto the risers and be completely dedicated and focused to the thing we're doing at hand. So it takes a little while. We have like any other chapter, as I'm a director, I would love for the 100% attendance at, we start at 7:30. I would love to see every single man there at 7:30, and yet we don't see that. So we have to, we work through that and, warm up through that. We don't, cater to that. We don't. But at the same time, we recognize that we're not going to sound like we want to sound like it. How we sound at 8:30 may not be how we sound at 7:30, and we're okay with that.
Right, I hear you. Always, to me, I always try to tell myself it's important to remember that this is actually a hobby.
Right.
And people have lives outside of the 2 hours that I have them on Thursday.
Right. Yeah, I'm not big on remembering that, although I need to do that.
Right.
I would like to think, yeah. I mean, our guys are, we perform and sing at a level that is, personally enjoyable, and yet we continue to raise the bar for ourselves. So we think all the time about, what is compelling in a rehearsal, what engages the guys, what makes any person say, I gotta be there at 7:30 or I'm gonna miss something. And I think we're actually sort of stepping up that game a little bit, which is fun.
That's great. Is the chorus auditioned or no?
The chorus is auditioned, so we have a process in which if someone's interested in auditioning with us, what they do is they come, and anyone can come and just join us in the risers. We welcome that. If they want to audition, the first thing they do is do a vocal placement with me. I spend about maybe 15 minutes with them, vocalizing them at the piano, talking to them about their own voices, giving my own feedback, and then doing some harmonic listening exercises where they can hear parts of the chord. Can they identify notes, even if they're not sure the names? But if I say I'll play a chord and say, can you sing the highest note? Can you sing the lowest note? Can you sing the second lowest note? Can you sing the second highest note? We'll do that a few times. And then from there, I will either say, we'd love to have you audition, or say, here's some issues. I heard this in your voice, or I heard this in the sort of pitch identification time. Work on these things, and we'd love to hear you again, maybe in 6 months or so. But in general, I don't think I've ever had that since we've been doing this process. Every man has come and has been able to vocalize beautifully and be able to identify pitches well, and then and we've moved on from there.
Interesting. So say someone comes to the first audition and doesn't do so hot. Are they allowed to become a member of the chapter and then audition again? And how does that work?
Well, we don't talk about it in those terms. We talk about being a member of the chorus. And because we encourage every man to be involved in the chapter.
Okay.
So we basically say we encourage them as singers and as people, and give them a plan for the next the next approach to joining. Almost always, in fact, every time, men will select themselves out if they've heard that they need some work. They will go and actually work. We've had a couple guys stick with us and actually audition again and actually make the chorus, which is very cool. But we don't really talk about being a member of the chapter versus a member of the chorus.
So good, thank you. So let's see, any other questions from out there? I'm just having a one-on-one with my friend Bill here. Anybody? I don't want to take up the floor. Jay, Chris, Russ.
This is Jay. I've got a question. Just wondering, what would a typical performance consist of? What types of songs? How long a program? What would you include?
Right. So we have various programs. So we obviously do shows like anybody else. We'll do a sort of an hour and a half of music, which will include full chorus songs, a couple of small ensemble songs. Quartets are invited. We'll also do. We're going to sing at Brookfield Place at the World Financial Center, and that is an hour straight of sort of semi-background music where it's holiday music plus some repertoire music, and we're just sort of cycling through that, and we'll do it again at like an hour later, kind of thing. So it's sort of both sort of like highly focused. People are watching us the whole time, but it's also we're almost Muzak a little bit, where people are listening to us and experiencing us, but not necessarily focusing on us.
Right.
I think we've all been there.
Yep. Yeah.
I heard someone else try to ask a question. Was it Russell?
No, it was the other Russ.
No, but I could.
Russ,
Go ahead.
what do you got?
Which one of us is
We're
first?
drawing straws?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to follow up on the point Bill was making about new members. And Bill, I'm just wondering what the kind of vocal coaching goes on maybe after the initial successful audition. What do new members look at in the first few weeks of their membership in terms of bringing them along vocally?
Right. Well, our regular vocal approach is pretty intense. So we spend at least a half hour every week, like preparing the singer for the ensemble, whatever we're going to do for the rest of the night. A lot of that is we recognize that we may get some wonderful singers, but they're not necessarily barbershop singers. So there are some stylistic things that they need to do to jump into what we do every week. It may be interval singing. It may be just recognizing the scale degrees and their how they play into melodic singing, or the idea of just tuning versus tempered tuning. A lot of things like that. We mix the bag a little bit. Generally speaking, a singer is going to jump into a barbershop ensemble singing that is functioning at a high level, but that recognizes that every guy there is on a spectrum of learning in that style, and we're going to help them all grow at the same time.
Neat. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my turn, I guess. A couple questions. One, you said you put on a performance for like an hour, hour and a half. What's the size of your chorus repertoire? Like, do you have 20 songs? 10, 50?
Yeah, probably 15 songs.
15.
15 plus So I joined in. December 4th was my first rehearsal last year. So part of my job was just to get to know the guys and not necessarily make changes immediately. In a perfect world, I would turn our repertoire over every year. Realistically, it's probably 2 years that we actually turn the whole repertoire over. And the reason being that I feel like I've experienced this in all the groups I've led, is that no matter what we do, when a song is learned, some of the skills that were sort of at the highest level at the time we learned it stay at that level. We can't necessarily go back to a new song or go back to an old song and perform it with new skills. Occasionally we can, but generally speaking, I have found consistently that if I learned a song in December of 2014 and then go back and then had a year of singing other music and even that song, and yet go back and try to do perform that song at the level we are with music we've just learned, they don't quite we don't quite get the skill on the new song. We don't quite get the skill of the new song with the old song as well as we'd like. So always turning repertoire over for me is important, because we just can't seem to master or remaster old repertoire with new skills as much as we'd like to do. Does that make sense?
That is so true. Every group I've ever conducted or been in, I cannot flip repertoire fast enough.
Right.
But it takes our guys a while to learn the repertoire, so they don't like to stop singing a song too soon. They want to get their money's worth out of it.
That's true.
Yeah, Russell, I totally get that. I think that's important. That the guy's experience of the music is there's we need to value that as much as our desire to help them grow, and that's a huge component of leadership, musical leadership. What is the guy's experience?
Yeah, but I take your point though about the new skills with old songs. It's yeah, I've definitely seen that. The other question I was going to ask you, you talk about having an audition chorus in the process of becoming a member of the chorus. What about for individual shows or competitions or anything along those lines? Do you do an audition for each event, or do you have a taping program, or do you just say to the guys, if you're in the chorus, you're on stage, and we just expect you to perform at this level?
Yeah, it's so that I would call that an evolving process with Gotham. Okay. You know, Gotham is it's really interesting. It's unlike other groups I've been part of. So I direct a Sweet Adeline's chorus in Albany, which is very barbershop, meaning it understands the whole process of qualifications and being ready to sing individual songs and packages, and there's a culture there that understands all that. Gotham is a very unique, in my experience, culture in that the majority of the men there are not seasoned barbershoppers, but young barbershoppers. Like when we celebrate barbershop birthdays, we're talking about 1 year, 3 years, 2 years. We're rarely talking about 5, 10, 15 years. Rarely. The joke I make is that when I joined Gotham, I raised the average age. I'm 48 years old. I raised the average age of Gotham. When I joined my Sweet Adeline's chorus, I lower the average age.
Yeah.
Right. So we get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and just remind me of the question you just asked me because I just jumped off.
Sure. Although just parenthetically here, you mentioned you guys celebrating first and second birthdays. We just had a guy get his 50-year pin
right
at International last year. So
awesome.
Yeah. I'm 53. I'm still below the average age of the.
That's great. That's
However,
great.
The question I asked you was, do you have a qualification process?
Thank you.
For,
thank you.
Shows or contests.
Yeah, thank you. So my point was that we just instituted that with Gotham, which is we do a live qualification. Here, this means that we sing every time we learn a new song. We will qualify that live. We'll sing it over the course of a few weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. We'll sing it with our section leaders out front and auditionees coming out and singing for them while the whole chorus sings. That means that it's a live qualification, that they are doing it in real time. They get instantaneous feedback, meaning they hand their music to the section leader. The section leader listens to them. Initially it's a pass-fail. The pass will be it's outside of performance errors, note and word perfect. If it's a fail, it means that there's a substantial portion or there's enough of the song that appears to be not known from the way we've taught it that they need to continue to work on, and they'll actually get feedback on that. Additionally, they'll be able to, in the course of rehearsal, there's a good chance they'll be able to re-qualify on that. We may sing it 6 or 7 times in rehearsal, and they'll be able to audition or attempt to qualify, get graded on it, saying, hey, these 2 sections, you've missed these notes here. They'll go and sing it a few times with the chorus, step back down, and actually be able to sing it for the section leader and qualify again. And we've had a number of guys be able to do that. And that is how we approach every single song.
Okay. And do you, if you did a song 1 year in your show and then the next year comes around, do you requalify on the same song if you're doing the same song? Or do you just say, well, you did it once, you're good?
No, if you've qualified, we do it. You're done.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I follow up on that live audition process a little more? Because that's really
Sure.
intriguing. And where does that come in the process of learning or teaching a new piece of music? In other words, are there sectionals that precede this live audition or breakouts, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, there are sectionals. We try to do that early in the process. So we'd say, like, we will decide, like, you know, here's the sheet music, here's the learning tape, learning files. In 4 weeks, we're going to be off book and begin to start the learning qualification process. Generally, that's how it goes. Like, you know, about a month. But we will have sectionals, and we will have an opportunity for the guys to sort of master the material. The goal is that the qualification process is not punitive. It's actually an educational process for them, a helpful tool for them to learn their music. The last thing we want to do is say, hey, you know, you just don't cut it here. You know, if the guy has made the chorus, if he's one thing we didn't sort of finish with the other conversation was, once someone has vocalized with Gotham, then they have to learn an entire piece of music and be able to sing it in a quartet to pass the audition. It has to be note and word perfect, and then we have to be able to coach them and realize this person is teachable. They have a voice that is above sort of the 50% level of the chorus. Their presence will add to the quality of Gotham. So having said that, they're in. So learning will now be a thing that helps them get further in, not sort of further out. There's no punitive process. That's more a helpful process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like it. With them singing out in front to the section leader and having the chorus sing behind them, it sounds like a real supportive environment.
Totally. It's very encouraging. Yeah, it's very encouraging. I actually learned that from Lori Lyford and the Scottsdale chorus of Sweet Adelines. That's how they do it, and they just won international championships, so they're not slackers at all. But it's not a thing where you can't cut it, but more of like, hey, let's help this person achieve and actually excel.
Great. Can I jump back to the regular chapter meeting and the thorough half-hour warm-up session that you have for all your singers? Then at that point, Bill, are you in performance mode essentially for the rest of the evening?
Well, so that's a great question. I think that's a very important question. We're actually always in performance mode, even during warm-ups. The idea that they are physically and vocally, emotionally engaged from the get-go, and that's been our thing. Sort of Gotham's sort of the knock against Gotham in the years gone by is that it's been a very careful sort of chorus that sang well but was not risk-taking. And this past year we worked a lot on being all in all the time. So the answer to that is we're always all in. From the moment we step on the risers, we are physically engaged, we are emotionally engaged, we are vocally engaged. There's nothing that says, oh, this is warm-up and the serious time will come later. From the very moment you step up, it's a privilege to be in the risers, and when you do that, you will be all in.
Nice. Thanks.
Bill, I'm super curious, as someone who came from Westminster Choir College, is that the last thing you said, physically, vocally, and emotionally engaged, is that something you sort of picked up after Westminster and more barbershop sort of brought that into your mantra, or is that something you picked up back then?
It's funny. I think I was talking to someone else tonight about the idea that, the self-awareness of being older, just being an older person and a more experienced human. I look back and realize the things that I wasn't doing as a student at Westminster, and I had incredible experiences there. But I realized that, I think it's something that was always present. The idea that we just had my ladies chorus had Joe Connolly come and coach, and he talked about, he used this sort of this trifecta thing of like of face, space, and place. This idea that you will look like the sound, you will create the space for the sound, and you will place the sound. And I think that's exactly what I did at Westminster. We use different words,
Yeah.
and we may have talked about it at sort of different sort of esoteric levels, but the idea was, yeah, that's what we did. We made sure that we communicated the story of the song every moment, whether we were warming up or whether we were performing. It was the same thing. And I think it's actually it's very interesting that it's actually very similar. We use different words, and
Yep.
it makes it seem like they're different words, different worlds, excuse me,
Yeah.
but they're really not.
I always like to just sort of compare because I used to have one foot in the classical world too. I was a music education degree. Chris, you said you were a music ed person yourself, so perhaps you have some input here too. So I always like to think about those those two worlds sort of aren't always the same, and I've learned a lot since I was a barbershopper. But maybe it's just like you said, it's a matter of experience coming around to those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I love the idea that there was a time when I was honestly sort of I grew up singing barbershop in my family apart from the society. It was something my family did. My mom, my grandfather, my uncles, my aunts all sang barbershop just as a family hobby. And then I discovered this. There was a place, like a group of people who actually did this in an organized way, and I thought that was the most amazing thing in the world. And then I went to college for music, and the first thing I did was try to hide my barbershop. I tried to hide it all. Like I realized early on that it was sort of lowbrow in my mind, and all I wanted to do was fit in with my sort of classical or cultured music training.
Yep.
And then as time went on, I brought it to I remember distinctly bringing it to my voice teacher, and I brought my quartet to my voice teacher and sang for him. I was so afraid. I thought he was going to say, like, you can never do this again, And what he said was, that was very pleasant. I was surprised. He said, I was surprised at the lack of sort of forced vocal pressure, and he said everything I wanted to hear, and I was surprised by it, and it took me a while to figure it out. But in the end, I realized that good singing is good singing,
Yeah.
and good stylistic singing is good stylistic singing. I can sing a Renaissance piece, I can sing a classical piece, I can sing a romantic piece, or a neoclassical piece. I can apply the proper vocal technique to all of those things, as well as barbershop, chorus, or quartet singing. I can do the exact same thing. The approach to being a healthy singer applies to every single one.
Amen. I believe.
Yeah. Preach it, brother.
I believe. What did I want to ask you? I don't want to hog the floor. Does anybody else have some questions they want to bring up? Jay, I see your mic is turned on.
Yes, I mean, it's not really a question, it kind of answers itself, but it must be a culture that you have there that allows you to have that, what you're calling physically, emotionally, and vocally engaged all the time. It's something we've, in Portland, have been talking about. We kind of, during our warm-ups, we say, this is where we'd like to be, this is something we'd like to do, but it's not self-sustaining. It doesn't. It might last for a little while. There'll be a little spark, a little little flare, and then it kind of goes away. And I realize it's up to the music leadership team, but I'm assuming it must be just something that everybody has that comes through your door says this is how it's going to be and this is what we're going to do. And I'm just wondering, is that something that you just kind of established right from the get-go, or is that something that has evolved?
It's really, Jay, that's a really good question. I think it's actually, the truth is that it was not, and I say this with great respect to what I received as director of Gotham, it was not something that was there all the time. This may sound, just take it as it is. What I say to both my choruses is, I will never ask you to do something that I'm not doing. Like if I ask you to be like physically, emotionally, vocally engaged, if you see that I am not, you don't have to do it. But if I stand in front of you as director and I am completely engaged, all I ask is you do as much as me.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. All I ask, just do as much as me. If I am physically, I'm physically engaged, be that. If I am vocally engaged, be that. If I am emotionally engaged, be that. If I'm all three or two of the three, be that. And for me, that's a big leadership thing because it's often, I think it's easy to say as a director, well, that guy or those guys aren't doing the thing. But the truth is, I can almost always trace back to my own leadership. Is it happening? Yes. Good, because I'm modeling it. Is it not happening? Well, clearly I am not modeling it, and I'm leaving the door open for guys to not do it.
Well, you're kind of in the New England area, but there's a history of stoicism and just kind of guys kind of turning into sticks on the risers, and all
Right.
these. We try to cajole them into moving or smiling or becoming engaged, and when you ask them, they're kind of, well, I am smiling, or I am engaged, or I am moving.
Right.
There's very little physical evidence.
Right. Tell you, I often say, "Are you happy?" Well, tell your face. Yeah. And but that's everywhere. Again, I go back to, and it's not as simple as this, but it is sort of a basic principle that says, am I actually, if they looked at me, they'd say, that guy is physically, emotionally, and vocally engaged in the majority of what we're doing. Is he intense? Is he giving? Is he open? Is he authentic? And
Yeah.
maybe that last word that I'm talking about, authentic. That is the primary word we use at Gotham. It's not so much as being anything else, but being authentic, being a real communicator of music and of story. Am I being authentic? I can listen. We can all, as directors, and we have to sometimes, because we have terrible days that are just, we have to fake it, and we have to say, hey, I'm right there. Love you guys. Let's do this thing. But the truth is that we're manufacturing it. But the majority of time, I ask my guys to be authentic, to be real communicators, and that means I have to be a real communicator. We were getting ready for our district competition, and we were working through some sort of changed choreography, and part of the choreography was that we were the guys in the center of the movements were looking around and connecting with other guys, and that was really important for the part of the storytelling. And our sort of in-house choreography coach was saying, look at Bill. To me, he's like, look at Bill. He's like, I love what he's doing, and Bill, tell me what you're doing there. Well, how are you connecting with the other guys? And the truth was that I honestly wasn't thinking of storytelling at that point. I was just looking at every single guy that I saw and said, I love that guy. I love that guy. I love that guy. This is an incredible guy. And that was a huge part of us actually achieving well as a chorus, was sort of the authentic relationship building that I have as a leader, to say, you know what, I like these guys. I don't just like them, I love them. My time spent with them is a gift to me personally. So I guess it's a super, super long answer to your question, but I think the answer is, in part, and I'm not an expert, The answer is, you know what? I have to be a real example of what I desire from them, and not a manufactured, but a real one. And they have to know that this guy cares about me, this guy loves me, this guy supports me, and this guy will have my back at any given time.
Well, it sounds like, I don't know if you've done CDWIs, but it sounds like you live the mantra that what they see is what you get. I mean, I mean, what you're describing there is exactly displaying what it is that you want everyone else to do, and it's up to them to give that back to you. But if you don't display it, then how can you ask them to do something different?
Jay, it's a really good thing. I think it's also a huge risk on our part because it requires us to be exceptionally vulnerable. Barbershop has a reputation of sort of being campy and sort of cheesy.
What?
But I know it's hard to imagine, right?
I've never heard of that.
It's crazy talk. But the truth is that music making is music making, and people are moved by real music making. And I think that the risk for us is we actually have to be real with our guys, and they need to see us and say, this dude is not withholding from us. He's actually letting us see his real self.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of stepping up to the next level of chapter leadership and musical leadership is saying, wait, this guy, he's been real with us. I'll be real with him because he's been real with us. It's amazing.
Well, this last contest, we took 2 ballads to contest rather than a ballad and an uptune, which was kind of very different.
Your standard, right? Yeah.
Right. And the 2 stories kind of led into each other, and it was quite amazing to have a number of guys on the risers that were choked up and in tears, as well as a lot of the audience. It was probably a more moving performance than if we had just done a ballad and an uptune. It was
right.
An experiment.
So Jay, I super respect what you just said because I think that's really important. Is that if the guys, when we pick music for performance and for contest, we say we of course want to connect to it personally. We want to be able to tell the story well, and we want to make sure that the people that we sing for and sing to will say, "Oh, I relate to that." And when that is sort of a convergence of qualities of music, it's very powerful. I will tell you that at International, the day we sang, because we were sort of vocally tired, I've been pushing them really hard, and they knew it, and it was okay. The day of contest, we had an entirely silent rehearsal for the morning of contest. And we simply mouthed the words of the songs and performed them visually, just did not make a single sound. I can tell you honestly, that the first time through both songs, I wept. I had to leave the room because it was so powerful.
Mm.
And then I gave the guys permission. I said, listen, we won't do this in performance, but I give you permission now to look across the room and look at your bros and look at them performing and learn from them and sing to them. Well, I got to tell you, the next time around of both songs, I cried more because it was it was so powerful. These guys saw each other sing, and they saw the authenticity of it. And it was, Jay, like you were talking about before, like this sort of connection to the music was so strong that it was overwhelming. And if you ask me, I think that was the thing that sort of tipped Gotham over in, we went from 15th to 6th, and it was my first year with them. And they had been 8th a couple of years before, So they've been high, but I think what tipped us over was the ability to connect to each other and then pour that into singing and performing at a high level. It can't. It's not. It just cannot be overrated. This idea of really being authentic with the music. And Jay, you sort of touched on that, which I really appreciate.
Well, that's a term I'm sure Chris and I will take back to the chorus. I mean, I think I've been trying to find a term to use. There's for the chorus, our director Jack Baggs is retiring at the end of this year, and I'm going to be stepping into that frontline director
Great.
position, and Chris is going to be one of the assistant directors as he is now, and we've been trying to streamline our vocabulary and try to figure out how to talk the same way, within the music team to the chorus in a way that makes sense, and not just that word authentic. Just that really strikes me. So I'm hoping that might have the same effect.
Jay, what's your background? Music background? Like, where are you from? What do you do? Like.
Well, I've been a barbershopper for 25 years. I don't have any formal music training other than playing. I played trombone since grade school, and played that up through high school and into college. And then I've gone to some of the Northeastern District classes. Some of the we have our own version of the Harmony College Northeast.
Right.
I've directed some of the other choruses in the area. I've directed Waterville and Brunswick and a small women's chorus. So just pick things up over time. So.
Right. Very cool. Chris, what's your background?
It's interesting. I'm kind of almost the opposite. I have very little. I'm only a barbershopper about 5 years, but my training background is I'm a music composition and conducting major out of Lehigh University.
Oh, very cool. Good.
So I do. You were mentioning before how some of the skills, what crosses over, what doesn't. I have firsthand experience that when you sing in a choir in college, they teach you about using the musical devices in the song as they're written.
Right.
That they only mean, okay, accentuate a couple of words here and there, use your crescendos and diminuendos, accelerate the tempo, slow down, when to, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Very little actually then goes into vocal quality and then connecting with the actual emotional meaning of a song. So it's a totally different atmosphere once you hit the barbershop world.
Right, which is almost a shame, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this stuff. That's what I mentioned with the CDWI. I wish I'd learned a lot of that stuff years ago when I was taking those courses.
Right. Yeah. I wish I was mature enough in my college days to sort of push what I've learned now back into those, because I think I would be a better performer. But it's funny because I think whether or not we actually use the same terms, I think in the end, I remember, I'm just saying this because it was a good experience. We sang the Brahms Alto Rhapsody, which is an all-men's ensemble. We sang that with it's an alto singer, and we sang it with the New York Philharmonic in college. And I remember we were having fun, getting ready. We were warmed up. We were ready to perform that day. And then a few of us were just sort of standing around and spontaneously started singing the music. And our director, who was, his name is Joe Flammerfeld, was he is arguably one of the finest choral conductors in the world. Came up and started singing with us. He didn't actually direct us, but actually started singing the bass line. It was the one thing that was missing from the 6-part ensemble. And we actually laughed our heads off, not because it was absurd, but because we actually experienced an authentic musical moment with him that was different than just him being in front waving his arms or leading us or helping us be good singers. And I think back to those moments thinking that's like a seminal moment. That was that's where the worlds crossed, like, you know, the meridians crossed, where we're not only being like really good singers and good performers, but being real. Because he stepped up and sang with us. He was a human with us and sang a bass part. And I looked at, like, I can distinctly remember looking at my friends across, thinking, we'll never forget the day that Joe stood up and sang with us, because he was real. And it's so important to be a real person no matter what kind of music you make.
Amen.
That's very cool.
So Chris, I'm right there. Chris, I'm right there with you. I totally get that sort of experience on both sides of it.
No, and I have to say I'm glad I'm doing it in the order I did, because when I started with barbershop and then going into that training, I might have been out a little bit disappointed almost that some of that stuff wasn't. I'm happier to see, having gone through this the second time and realizing how much of that carries over, and when it comes just vocal production, with how much, I don't want to say it the way it's going to sound, but farther ahead we are than a lot of other art forms, just because of the ease of singing, the authenticity that many groups are bringing to it nowadays. All of those things. It's fantastic to watch, and I'm glad it's this way.
Yeah, I totally get that. I agree with that.
So to take that another level, in order for you or for us to be authentic, there's got to be some level of preparation involved in order for you to be so in tune with your music and the lyric and everything involved. In order for you to have that level of authenticity you want to give your guys or your girls, you've got to have done some homework already. Would you agree?
Totally. Yeah, totally. You have to do both sides of the homework. The homework is, I got to know my stuff. I got to know my music. I got to understand what's happening musically. And then you have to be like, you know, for lack of a better way to say this, you have to be okay with yourself. You have to be able to say, like, okay, I'm a guy. I do this thing. Like, it's not my full-time thing, or it is my full-time thing. And here's what I bring personally. You know, the thing about Gotham is as an example, Gotham is a little bit unique place in that almost no matter when I'm in the room, I'm not the most talented guy in the room. one of my assistant conductors is a Broadway pit keyboard player and assistant conductor. He's a dude. Like, he totally knows his stuff. Yeah, it's cool. I have guys. I have professional singers in the group. I have, you know, total amateur, meaning, you know, non-vocational barbershop singers who do business stuff. So it's the spectrum. I have professional actors, and I have Broadway. I have a guy who showed up into New York and got the lead in a national tour of Cats. Like, those are the kind of guys who are in my group. Like, they just, like, their very first gig was the best gig of their lives. So, like, I have both sides. And I guess the point of that is I can never rest on my laurels as a musician.
Mm.
You know, I can never say, you know what, I can flub this because no one knows. They totally know. These dudes know. In fact, we're doing a great arrangement of New York State of Mind by a guy within the chorus, and I turned it over to one of my assistants because the truth is, I think he's actually better at it in this particular song, in this particular feel. He's got a better thing going on than I do, and I said that to the guys. I said, listen, I gave this to Matt because I think he's better. He'll do this better than I will. And no one shrieks, no one steps back, no one says, oh my gosh, you have to be the best, the most. I think what they say is, okay, that's leadership. This is what leadership does. Leadership says, let's empower everybody. So to the original question, I think you have to be prepared musically, you have to be prepared emotionally. But the third element, I think you have to be prepared to say, you know what, as a leader, this is what's best for the organization. Whether it's best, what I think it's best for me, you know, may not be the first consideration. these guys need this guy in front of them doing this thing. Let's make it happen.
Agreed. I love it. Any other questions from out there on the floor? Jay, Russell, I think perhaps Chris had to leave. Russ Bernard,
Chris pieced out. I don't like that.
Good stuff. So in January, we're going to learn to piece together at the Leadership Academy.
Yes, we will. Absolutely.
I forget we choose. Did we choose It's You?
Yes, it's you. Bob runs It's You. So really quickly, Bob is my college friend, and now my best friend in the world. Bob Run.
Awesome.
We've been friends for getting actually 30 years this year. He is a brilliant musician. Bob is a guy who, so I sang in the quartet with Bob for a bunch of years, and Bob would come with music. And this song, It's You, right as we were stopping to sing as a quartet, he taught us the tag of the song. He had just arranged it. And I thought, every single song that Bob arranged, I said, this is the best thing you've ever done. So Bob's arrangements are Lou Perry-esque in that he thinks about the bass line as a melody all the time. He approaches everything from the easiest voice leading possible, and yet wants to make it the most expressive, beautiful, epic thing that he can make it without violating the other things. So I'm really excited about singing this song because it's a super, super wonderful arrangement.
Yeah, it sure is. I'm thrilled that our folks are going to have a chance to work with you on that. Going to be a good time. I know we've already got the sheet music and the tracks available for those who register. You'll get a username and a password to download that and learn it ahead of time, just like we did last year. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
Same here.
Is that the same arrangement that, who did it? Big Orange did it at 2012 International?
It's probably similar. I don't know that one. I know that Vocal Spectrum sang it this past International.
Okay.
Actually, oddly enough, so here's a very fun story. I hope you like it. So I'm going on with Gotham, my first international competition with them. As we're waiting to go on, Vocal Spectrum goes on before us. I see Tim. So Tim Warwick, the learning track provider, is a good friend of mine. I sang with him in a quartet as well. And like he gave me a big hug, and then he went out. And as we're waiting to go on to sing our international set, there's Tim Warwick with Vocal Spectrum singing my friend Bob Run's arrangement of It's You. And I thought, this is the best way to go on to stage right now. So I think that it's just a very, very good thing.
Very cool. Well, we are so looking forward to having you in January. I hear it's beautiful in Worcester in January. You're going to love it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Ha! I say, from Nova Scotia.
Yeah, no, right, you bunch of sissies, right?
No, their weather's no worse than ours, but it's about the same as ours most of the time.
Hey, but there's something like, you can trump them by saying, really, I'm from Canada, even though you could be further south from them. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't think we're south of Worcester. We are south of Bangor.
Right, Bangor. But who's in Bangor anyway?
Oh,
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dave. It's all good.
Well, Bill,
I've been to the last two leadership academies, and one year I drove into a snowstorm, and the other year I drove home in a freezing rainstorm. So,
Russell, do you have to be a sissy both times, Russell?
Yeah, I'm just pointing it out. Like, who doesn't understand the weather in New England and schedules these things for January?
Right, exactly right.
Well, I can't wait. It's going to be a great time. Bill, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thank you so much.
Getting us all pumped up for January.
I have one last question.
Go ahead, Jay.
Is Bill available for? I personally have some vocal production issues, which come into play as I'm trying to demonstrate, or as I'm in front of the chorus trying to give an example, and my voice just kind of goes right out the window. I know there's probably a million different sources, but can you recommend either a source in particular to go to about vocal issues, or?
Yeah, I guess a lot would depend on. Have you taken private vocal lessons before?
I did for a little bit. I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good teachers in New England area. I mean, obviously Kirk Young is a fabulous singer and arranger and the guy. Yeah, I mean, I would recommend regular personal vocal study. And you know what? You could recommend a particular person, but honestly, there's enough people who know enough good things that if you just had a third party listen to your voice and say, here's what you should do, and you work on those things, almost always they get better.
Okay.
Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Bill, great stuff. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, I like that you're looking up your voice at its best. Who's doing that?
That's me. So, Jay, this is a book I highly recommend.
You have someone in the area too, Deborah Lynn.
Yes.
Yeah, I've met her at Harmony U, and she knows her stuff.
Yep, and she's actually directing one of our chapters here in the NED now. So.
Yeah, she's very, very good. So any chance you can get with her is great.
Absolutely.
Jay, I will say that it is important that you can demonstrate, but it's more important that you can articulate. And I think that's most important for the guys. Can you communicate in language they can understand, and then they can appropriate and demonstrate themselves? If you can do that, you know what? Like I had a number of conductors and even directors in barbershop, but a number of people in my life who could not actually demonstrate at the level they were asking for, but they inspired to it and instructed to it, and that was really cool. And actually, that was enough.
What I've been doing is simply asking if it's a particular section, obviously ask the section leader to come out and demonstrate.
Great.
Just so that I don't give something wacko, that mostly it's just at times I just have like, well, if you've ever heard of Wookiee, that's what it sounds like, especially at the end of the day. Early in the morning, it doesn't seem to be too bad.
Right. So, Jay, let me tell you something really funny. So what the assistant director I mentioned before, who's a Broadway pit director, he's not the finest singer in our group at all. He is actually he arranged our ballad last year, and he arranged our ballad that we'll be going to contest with this year. So he's a fine barbershop arranger. But he creates when we learn it, the first thing he does is he arranges the song, and then he sings a sort of garage band mix of the song for just the other assistant conductor and me, so we can get a feel for it from his perspective. And it's not particularly good, and I say that very respectfully, but it does communicate to us, and that's super important. Mm-hmm. So if you are able to communicate with your voice, yeah. More than model perfection, you're better off.
All right.
Terrific. Well,
guys, this is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that we had this chance to chat.
Same here.
Part of the Mind Trust here in the NC. Looking forward to January. Here's the Leadership Academy registration page. If you haven't already, get over there and register and let us know
Yeah.
you're coming, because it's going to be a great, great day. You want to save your seat. That's actually the auditorium on the right there, I believe, that you'll be
Nice. Tell your slacker brothers and sisters that they need to get on this. It's very good.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Bill, it's been awesome. So thank you again, and we'll see you in January. Everybody, thank you for tuning in once more. And Russell, again, you get the award for being here to all the webinars. Your prize will be delivered in person at the Leadership Academy. Must be present to win.
Nice job, Russell. Nice job.
Well, thank you. Listen, Eric, thank you so much for arranging this all year long. I think it's been a great idea, and you've done a great job of leadership yourself, making these webinars happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
sir. Thank you.
well done, Eric. Nice job.
Keep going. Very cool. All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you at the Leadership Academy.
Awesome.
All
Good
right.
luck.
Thanks
Thanks,
again. Take care.
Everybody. Thanks, Bill.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.